Hey guys, it's me Delta1 here with Airsoft Talk, and today I'm doing 101 Airsoft for Dummies motors. Now, if you hear my roommates in the background, I'm sorry, they brought family over, and I needed to make this video and all this good stuff. I'm gonna talk about motors. Motors have high torque and high speed. Now there is the GMP makes kind of in the middle, and I'll get to that point later. There's short, and then there's long type. 90%, 99, there's only one version 3 gearbox that does not use a short type, and that is, I think, there's two. There is the SIGs, which use a medium type, and then there is the MP5Ks. Those use a long type. Other than that, pretty much everything else uses a short type. I mean, a long type, except for the SEMA M14s and all that stuff. But you get the point. If you have an M4, if you have any version 2 or a version 6, except for the Thompson, you have a long type. But anyways, there's high torque motors. Now I'm going to rate the motors from the kind of sitting at the middle end of, I mean, these are upgrades motors. These are motors you buy, not ones that come in your gun. Some of them may, but one of the most overrated motors that I've had experiences with, and I have my friends that are better technicians than I am that I've had experience with, is the GMP M120. I've heard people having such a hard time getting it to pull an M120 spring with a 9.6 battery that they couldn't get it to pull it unless they used a LiPo. I've had that experience. The only gearbox that'll work in flawlessly will be a saw, because it's an elongated gearbox and it's not going to have the strength to pull. It doesn't have to pull back as hard because it's not as confined. Now, I'm not saying they're bad, but I'm not saying they're good. I'm not going to tell you to go spend $40 on that motor because I don't think it's worth it. I think it's worth $25 at best. Next motor, and these are for high-speed motors I'm going to be talking about. Go buy a Matrix or 5KU. These are motors that are mainly found in America. They're the best. I will get to the best motors. Matrix makes a great high-speed motor. I use one in my AK, and it pulled an M130 spring back with a 11-1 battery. I was really impressed. 5KU is Matrix rebranded the 5KU motor. SHS motors I've heard are pretty good. I've not had any personal experiences, but I've heard nothing but good things about them. They're high speeds. Another motor that I want to mention that is completely overrated and nowhere near worth the cash is Sistema motors. I've had one and I hate it to death. The reason being, it broke in 3,000 rounds and I was only pulling an M130 spring, and I was using a high torque and Sistema gears, so I wasn't using off-brand gears with an off-brand pinion gear connecting. Perfectly trimmed. Sistema, even a Sistema piston, I mean, there was nothing that the gears were physically touching that weren't Sistema. Even the actual bushings themselves. This is what pissed me off. Complete waste of $100. Don't buy a Sistema motor. I'm saying that just because you can buy two motors that are just as good for the same price. Now, the best motor that you can buy that is high speed is an element motor. They cost $22 from China. Now, you may be telling me, I've had bad experiences with element. I beg to differ. I've got a buddy that's got an element high-speed motor with an M125 spring in his M4 with stock AGM gears, bushings, and all that good stuff. Just piston was upgraded. That's it. And he reshimmed it, installed the motor, has an AB MOSFET, and I think 14 gauge wiring. 34 rounds per second on a 7.4 LiPo. 20C. There is no denying it. I saw it in person. I didn't see it in person. I saw it over Skype. I've seen chronos. It's the best motor. It's quieter, it's more power efficient, and it's a lot better. Like in every single way, it's a better motor. There's no other reason to buy that motor unless you don't want to have to deal with importation from China. Then go buy 5KU Matrix. It's the same for iTorques. GMP makes some good high torque motors. Their M171 that costs like $80 bajillion. I've heard really good things about. But why would I do that when I can go buy an element motor that has pulled an M240 spring? I've seen people put like above M200 springs and they'll pull them. Of course, it breaks their gearbox in like half a second. And you may be wondering, where they get these springs. You can get them custom made in China. Now, the compression was nowhere near the same because it's so hard to keep compression at that FPS. But anyways, high torque motors. I would really say if you've got the cash, just deal with the importation or just get a matrix motor. It's the same thing. It's a 5KU. I've got a buddy who pulled an M210 for a cheap $45 motor here in the States. That's amazing. That's why you should buy either a matrix, and if you can't get an element, get the matrix. If you can get an element, get an element. They're both the same. They're the best motors on the market. It's $20. I mean, if you get a complete, say you have the worst luck ever and you get a lemon, it's only $20. It's not going to be $100 like a Sistema, which is completely overrated. They're great. They're good motors, but for how much you're paying, it's a complete ripoff. I've had them, and I've had matrix motors perform better, in my opinion. I've never, ever cared for their Sistema motors after I bought that one. I was so disappointed. But that's really the Motor 101. You really want to stick with Element. Like, there's no other reason unless... And what's great about Element is they make medium-type motors. So for the people who have SIGs and are like, oh, I can't get a good motor, you've got the best motor on the market. You've got an Element, and it's a medium-type. What more could you ask for? Now, that's basically my motor segment. I had to get this off my chest. Yes, the GMP motor is overrated. I'm not saying it's bad. It's overrated, and it's not as good as people make it out to be. That's basically what I'm getting at. And don't get pissed off because these are... I'm not trying to be like I'm a know-it-all, but I've used these parts, and this is my experiences. If you've got an M120 motor that's not pulling, you know, an M120 spring, and it's above a 9.6, please let me know, because I've had that problem. So correct me if I'm wrong, but do it in a proper manner. Don't be like, oh, I'm a troll, fuck you, you're stupid and we're wrong, and I'm a GMP fanboy. Blah, 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 blah. No, that's not what I'm getting at. I'm not criticizing you. GMP makes some good parts. I do not like their gears, but their motor is overrated. I have their M140 motor. I use it personally in one of my RPKs. I think it's a fantastic motor. I think that's what the GMP high speed should be, because they were going for a high torque motor and it ended up being some sort of hybrid high FPS M140 turbo motor. I don't know. That's what M120 motor should be like. But anyways, had to get this off my chest and say it. So, guys, thanks for watching, and let me know what I should do Airsoft for Dummies 101 for next.